All right, so we are joined from Savannah, Georgia by Miss Ambria Berksteiner with a resume that will pretty much rival any ones we've had. Graduate of Spelman College, Auburn University, Miss Black Savannah 2017, top 30 under 30 HBCU, member of the Savannah Citizens Advocacy Board, being seen with Stacey Abrams at national appearances. Just the list goes on and on. And we're recording this for all of our middle school computer science engineering students at Shirley Simmons Middle School, Old Town Middle School, Madison Middle School, and Germantown Middle School, as well as our high school students at Germantown, Ridgeland, Madison Central, and the Academic Options Center. And I've got a room full here with me at Velma Jackson High School, and we've got a lot to talk about, a lot to cover, but we'll fit it in. But before we get into what it all, one STEM at a time, and what you do as an industrial engineer, we would love to hear about your background in Savannah, and then Spelman College, and then the Ginn College of Engineering at Auburn University.
Yes, well, thank you all for having me here. I've only been to Mississippi once, and that was just to Jackson. That was it. So maybe I could come more times. Who knows? But yes, I was born and raised right here. I always say by the coastal city, by the sea, the hostess city by the sea, Savannah, Georgia. My family, or my dad's side really, has been in Savannah for generations. So I am what you considered, well, to Southern people, an old Savannian, our old family here in Savannah. We've been here for a very, very long time. But yes, I attended public school. So I am a product of the Savannah Chatham County public school system. And I graduated from the Savannah Arts Academy in 2013. And upon graduation, or I would say just my junior and senior years, the years you start looking at college and preparing, maybe what you want to do after, your school career, I entered this program called the Explore Post program. And so I said, oh, this is really cool. It's a work, or sort of like an apprentice type of program. And it's a program that's sponsored by SCCPSS, or the Savannah Chatham County Public School System, and the Boy Scouts, or the Coastal Boy Scouts of America. So the Boy Scouts, I would say, chapter for like this region. And so I said, okay, well, this is fun. You get a day out of school. You get a court, an honors court. Like, wow, this is the life. But I really wanted to, actually, fun fact, I wanted to major in some sort of communications before I picked engineering as my ultimate major. And so I said, okay, I thought I was going to be the next Hoda Kotb. I thought I was going to just, be behind Good Morning America's desk or something like that, my local news station. I love to talk. I love to speak to people or reach people in different ways. And I also like serving my community. So I said, okay, well, either I thought I was going to be like a fashion journalist, or I thought I was going to be like a news reporter. And when I applied for the program, my mentor, or the director of the program, who still actually runs the program to this day, Miss Barbara Foley, she said, well, Ambria, she called me and she said, well, we don't have any more space in the communications portion, but we have a lot of room in the engineering Explore Post program. And so I was like, yuck, I never thought, I never thought in a million years I would do something science related. I always had good grades in science and math, but I just never looked at that as a career option for me. Again, I went to an art school, so a school for the arts, excuse me. So I thought that I would have a creative career of some sort. So I always looked at science and math as, how am I going to have a creative career? Where the base or the foundation of the career is science and math. So with much protest, but with push from my mother and my advisor, they had me sign up for the Engineering Explorer Post program. And I would guess I would say a student intern, or they say student explorer, for the next 2 years. So junior year and senior year. And I said, wow, like this program really changed the trajectory of my life. I really saw how different forms of engineering, not just industrial engineering, which is what I majored in, could really show you how, you can be creative with these careers. I never thought that I could reach people through engineering, or I could, be creative, use my I was a visual arts major at Savannah Arts. So using my art skills, like I never thought that I could do that in one career, and engineering is literally all of those things in one, literally. And so I told myself, okay, this is what I want to do. And it just so happens that I applied to Spelman College that early winter, spring. And Spelman, I got accepted, and Spelman had a dual degree engineering program. And so I said, okay, well, this is lining up. Maybe this is exactly where I'm supposed to be. And so the fall of 2013, I entered Spelman College as a freshman in the dual degree program, and I had a concentration in math. I was a math major, but really a general science major. It's really a funky type of program if you think about it, but general science major, but with math as my concentration. So that's why I say I'm a math major, really. And I was there for 4 years. It's a 3-2 program, but sometimes you spend longer at your HBCU or your homeschool, depending on your credits and what you need. And then you move on to your engineering institution. So really my sophomore year at Spelman was my first time that I had ever received a mentor that looked like me. So when I was in the Engineering Explorer Post program, they were all nice and very accepting and warm, family light, but I was being taught by mostly men or mostly white men in that program. And so when I reached Spelman, I applied for the Georgia Power Women in Mentoring program. And so they gave a group of girls at Spelman Black women as their mentors and employees from the Georgia Power, or it's Mississippi Power too, but they're all under Southern Company, if you guys are familiar. So Georgia Power, Alabama Power, Mississippi Power, all of that is under Southern Company. And so they gave me, her name is Melody Welch. I still talk to her to this day. When I was about 19, turning 20, that was when I received my first mentor who's a Black woman, and who's a Black woman that was an electrical, I believe her major was electrical engineering. Sorry, Miss Smell, if you watch this, because I forgot your major, but it was electrical engineering, I believe. And, again, that helped me to push me further, because engineering, anything in the sciences is hard. Not going to shy away from that. But it's also something that was challenging, and something that you need to have a support system in to get, I would say, pushed forward, right? So, or to keep you, there, because there are a lot of people that kind of leave the program or change their majors because they're missing that key component, but we'll talk about that later. And so my junior year at Spelman, Miss Savannah came in. I went to my mom one day and I said, hey, I want to start doing pageants. I literally started very late. Most girls start pageants, in the South, start pageants when they're born from birth. And I didn't do that. I started pageants at 20 years old. And it just so happens that I think that was the third pageant that I did. And I ultimately won the title of Miss Savannah, and I got to go to Miss Georgia. And honestly, if you would have told me that, like, I literally still have people to this day that come up to me and say, hey, weren't you Miss Savannah? And I was like, oh yeah, like, it's a title that just, I feel like it's going to stick with me for the rest of my life, or at least my early adult years. And that is ultimately how I came up with Operation One STEM at a Time. So what really was supposed to be a year-long project or platform, 6 years later, here I am. And it has grown. And I believe that my mentors around me saw the vision, and I didn't see it at first, because at first I said, okay, my goal is to win Miss Georgia. And then after this year, going back, hitting the books, going to graduate. But I had a lot of people saying, even though it was a lot of work juggling school and Operation One STEM at a Time. I had a lot of mentors around me that was, saying, this is what Savannah needs. This is what your community needs. You need to continue this, going. And now, I have a toy drive, a book drive, Blueprints to STEM. I have annual camps that I host in Savannah or wherever I am that summer. And I also have a Women in STEM award ceremony and panel that I do every year. So this has been the ride of my life. If you would have told me 7 years ago that I'd be sitting here talking to you all about just science and math and all of that good stuff, I would have said, haha, no way. But I'm very glad that it turned out like it did. So yeah.
That's awesome. Now, before we get into the technology and engineering portion, I do want to talk about, because we have so many high school, middle school students. You went to HBCU, great institution, Spelman College, and then you went to PWI, another great institution in Auburn University in Alabama. So obviously, they both have a lot of things to offer their students. And some people watching an hour later may be more familiar with one than the other. But what can young people get from an HBCU that maybe they can't get from a PWI? And what can maybe young people get from a PWI that they cannot get from an HBCU?
Ooh, that's a good question, because I had Both experiences. Oh gosh, HBCU life it's beautiful. And I get so upset when, and I'm probably gonna ruffle little feathers when I say this, but I get so upset when I hear other young African American, maybe students, children, or even parents that say, oh, don't go to an HBCU and HBCU is not good enough. That is not true. I always say, like, just look at the historical significance of HBCUs, created for us to educate us, right after a tumultuous time in our, history, educating free slaves, newly freed slaves, right? So you have these institutions that were designed specifically to educate you, and to educate you in whatever socioeconomic, space you may be in at the time. So Spelman, like I said, was just the AUC, Spelman, Morehouse, Clark, Atlanta, ITC, the whole, group was just great. It was, like I said, a beautiful place to be. Just imagine, specifically for Spelman, but just imagine a group of young African American women that look like you,
Hold
but
on
you
one second.
learn.
Hold on 1 second.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Give me
okay.
1 second. All right. Sorry about that. I was getting buzzed and I couldn't hear him. Mike, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. But just talking about Spelman and just attending Spelman, like, I was spoiled, and you don't realize that until you leave. Like, what space and what space are you going to be in again, where you have young African American women around the same age, and you're all smart, you all come from different walks of life. So we had, wealthy students, and we had students that were not so wealthy, but we all are, you had students that maybe came from high performing schools, private schools, or you had students that came from inner city schools. You had students from all walks of life, but we're all striving towards like this one goal, to be successful and to ultimately graduate. When you enter Spelman's gates, the saying is a choice to change the world. Like, that's our motto, our school motto. And they give you this charge when you're 18, and you're like, what am I going to do with this charge? Like, what is that? A choice to change the world. But you don't even realize that you're changing the world in whatever way that you're doing it. Like, someone said, oh, you're doing that with Operation. And I said, oh yeah, you're right. So that's my choice to change the world. And I didn't know until 5-6 years later. But where are you going to have and speaking about the AUC or any HBCU, where are you going to have a community of mostly African American people, where your professors we had a mixture of professors, mixed race of professors, but most of your professors are Black people. But I was getting taught calculus and linear algebra by Black women. That is sometimes unheard of. So just to have that connection, and knowing that people kind of know where you come from, and maybe the struggles that you're facing, and they're willing to help you. Now, speaking from a PWI point of view, it was a little bit lonely, I would say it was. But of course, that was a big culture shock for me. So I'm not going to say that
a huge school. I mean, you're talking about 25,000 students. I mean,
yes, Spelman, we have about 2,000 to 3,000 students on campus, and they may not all live on campus, right? So you're going from like 2,000, 2,500 students in an all women's institution. I mean, even though we went to an all girls school, Morehouse and Clark Atlanta kids came on our campus, and we went on their campus, but it's still an all women's institution. Yes, and then I'm in the biggest, culturally Black city in the South. And then I'm going to Auburn, Alabama, which is population, I have no idea, but college town. And like you said, 20 to 30,000 students, and everybody's rushing and all over the place. And it's like, oh my gosh, my apartment was actually next to like a cow pasture. No lie.
I believe it.
So that was something to get used to. And then, I mean, these are probably the cons. I was in class, and I was the only Black girl. Sometimes I was the only woman. Sometimes the only Black woman. Being like in a group of men, and you had to prove that, why am I here? I'm supposed to be here. And sometimes asking for help. Professors were great, but it was a little bit harder because you had to figure out how to navigate that. Imposter syndrome. I will say I had imposter syndrome. But I would say probably the best part of PWI schooling was, again, the diversity in the culture. So Spelman allowed me to see that Black people are multifaceted. So, like, again, we had our wealthy Black people, and not a lot of people see that all the time. Not a lot of people know what Jack and Jill is. Not a lot of people have been to private school, never even seen one. And also, like I said, we had individuals who were, who worked hard in school and who, like I said, came from those inner city environments to where they were not exposed to a lot that their Spelman sisters was exposed to. But we all
has a very large international population.
Yes, that too. So again, that always is when people say that HBCUs lack diversity, that is not true. We had students from Agnes Scott, that's another all women's institution that's in Atlanta, well, Decatur really, that would come and we would exchange with them. We had a lot of students from Africa. So like Kenya, Rwanda, South Africa. So, even though again, we're all quote unquote Black people, we're still different experiences. Like, how they grew up was not how we grew up. We also had people from like Europe, Germany, like we had people from, just Hispanic, students, like we had students from all walks of life. And the same thing with PWI, and also football culture. Surprisingly, I know we're supposed to be talking about academics, but being able to go to SEC games for mostly free. I've seen Georgia versus Auburn and Ole Miss and LSU, and having that experience and thousands of screaming 80,000 fans in one stadium. That's a culture shock. But I would say the resources in the engineering school, I think Auburn is the top engineering school in Alabama. So again, state of the art. Education, professors, etc. So
yeah. Now, and that's a great short description of both of those universities. But do want to say it's important to understand historically Black does not mean exclusively Black. It's just how.
Yes.
Now, for a lot of kids with me now, some watching, they might not know what an industrial engineer is. So, what are some of the things that an industrial engineer does, and because it's such an important job? So
it is.
What are some of the things that you deal with, and some of the things that you're trained on, and that you continue to train with?
Well, even though my role right now, I'm not in engineering right now, industrial engineering right now, but and that's actually something I'll mention later. Sure. But the first day I walked into my true first industrial engineering course, my teacher wrote efficiency on the board, and we were all like, "What?" And literally, if you want to sum up what an industrial engineer, well, all engineers have the mindset or the goal of efficiency, but our particular job is efficiency. So we deal with supply chain, and I know you guys have probably been hearing about like the railroad strikes and things like that, and how that's going to affect the supply chain. That is very big, because that is something that could affect a lot of things as far as the country and like economics goes. Just from people saying, "Hey, I don't want to work because of X, Y, and Z." But efficiency. So we're the business engineers. We get a lot of slack from the other engineers because they say, "Oh, you guys don't deal with a lot of math and science. You're in the office all day." So we're like your consultants, your project managers. We're more so those people, like the people that kind of, I don't like to say call the shots, but we're those people on the sites that say, "Hey, if you do this way, you can save this amount of money or this amount of time." So that's why you can see us working for like, okay, so airports, there's a lot of people that have to figure out how the airport's going to flow, how the flights are going to lift off, how they're not going to crash into each other. You have engineers in the background that's helping out with that. Sometimes you'll hear operations like that, a lot of operations. So it's called industrial engineering or industrial and systems engineering. So when we're talking about systems, we're talking about like places like that. Even fast food chains. I know there's probably some engineers in the roles of like project managers or program managers or consultants that work with like Chick-fil-A, McDonald's. How can we okay, so Chick-fil-A, they're probably known for the best customer service. And I guarantee you that concept of like just how they work their magic in the drive-thru line came from an engineer or someone that had some sort of an engineering background. Like you don't even know the significance of something as small as like, okay, how did this iPhone get to my home? How much an industrial engineer or an engineer of some sort plays a part in that.
Yeah, and also a lot to do with the materials that are used.
Yes. So mechanical engineering, cars, electrical engineering, the lights, things like that, or your phones or your iPhones, things like that. But yeah, so that is what industrial engineering is.
Yeah, and then with engineering, and I ask every guest the same question because we do the, obviously the basic engineering design process. And and the basic part of engineering design process is that you are going to have to test and retest and have several attempts at something. So how often do professional engineers actually get it right the first time?
Never. It's probably less than 1%, just being honest. I mean, I'm not really in now. Lillian, the one you talked to probably earlier, she's more of a scientist or an engineer that's in the lab, so she would have a little bit more to say about that, obviously.
Yeah.
But me, I'm not really in a
But you're
laboratory
still
setting.
solving a problem
But
that's going to have many types of
but
solutions.
yes, but solving a problem, like literally, okay, classroom setup for an engineer, like let's say you all want to go to, engineering school or major in engineering. Sometimes I would have friends that would have one project the entire semester.
Wow.
And it would take, or one or two projects, maybe four if they broke it up, but you would have that entire 2 to 3 months to come up. Like literally, okay, there was a class I had to take called senior design, make this very quick. And they gave us a real life problem, and we had to take all semester to figure out how we were going to fix that problem. And we actually worked with Honda on ours, and how we were going to execute that problem. And we actually had to present it to not the execs, but the team that we worked with, and how would we as students solve that problem. So yeah, you have most of your problems are going to take couple of weeks, months. You'd be very lucky. You make a lot of money and be sought after by a lot of companies if you got it right on the first try.
All too often, these kids they can't get it right in the first 10 minutes. Oh, this is too hard. I quit. And
oh, trust me, in the throw that mindset away, please. Because it's harder in the adult world, but it's worth it.
Especially with the way the world is going in industry, these engineering jobs are becoming more and more important. So that's why
they are technology. All of those jobs are becoming important. And I even share with people in different ways. Like let's say college may be too expensive for you, right? You can honestly, and I know I'm supposed to be promoting college, I'm sorry, but
we're all about giving people options.
If I went to school now, I would probably take a different approach to how I did it.
I agree. I say the same thing.
I probably would not have done the dual degree program. I'm sorry, Spelman. I love you guys, Auburn. But I probably would have gone the route of like, okay, getting a drafting degree, associate's degree for 2 years, then getting another, finishing out my 4 years somewhere else and getting it in another area. But I could apply drafting to that because I love like the pictures and how they come together. Then go to a graduate institution where it's free funded, you get all of your masters in X, Y, and Z. Are honestly a lot of my friends tech, like certifications are becoming the thing now. I'm not saying they're replacing degrees, but if you okay, so a $20,000 degree versus a $2,000 course, which you can probably get for free, especially if you're a woman or a minority. Like Coursera, Google's Classroom, or I don't even know if it's called Classroom, but Google has like a lot of certifications that they give out, things like that in project management, in cloud design, cloud engineering, UX design, things like that, to where like literally companies like Apple and IBM and Google, they are hiring these people with these certifications and not really just the traditional 4-year school experience.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that because two things on that, and then we'll talk about one STEM at a time. But first of all, Mississippi does a great job of using their community college system. So there's actually scholarships based on ACT that are not only academic but trade as well.
Yes.
So in the engineering fields, the trades are becoming more and more important. Because you look at avionics, you look at industrial. People have to be able to build these things. They had to work with the materials, and then especially in the tech side, there's 1 and 2 year programs at these community colleges that will give them that associates. And then a friend of mine did drafting, and he's a professor in Ohio, and he has you
make the same amount as an engineer most times.
So yeah, I think it's important that we are actually mentioning there are multiple levels of entry in this area. It's not just jump into a 4-year school, because that's obviously not everybody's path as far as academics or financially or just your desire. So that's important.
And you can work your way up. I literally, one particular man that I met at Alabama, or I guess Southern Company, Alabama Power. I don't know if he went to traditional 4-year school, but now he's like literally the district, power manager. I forgot the particular role. Sorry if I'm messing that up. But but just learning that there are multiple ways. And sometimes that's what I'm trying to tell students that now, because sometimes you don't find out about that until it's like, oh, well, I'm halfway through this program or I'm already here, but there's multiple ways that you can necessarily get the engineering experience and become, sometimes you don't even have to have this quote unquote STEM degree to get into engineering or be some sort of a quote unquote engineer. And that is what I would like to, convey to students. So yeah.
And we have associates programs here in civil engineering and electrical engineering. Mm-hmm. So all that, and all those can, like you said, very cheap, and very, some of them are free. Now, before I get to the students' questions, we got to talk about one STEM at a time. We did watch a short video on that about your organization there in Savannah and all the work you've done.
Yes. Oh, you said, are you going to watch it, or you said you all watched it?
No, we already have.
Okay. Did you go to
my about and hear more about it?
Yeah. Yes. Okay. So that actually, shout out to the Creative Coast in Savannah. That's probably what you saw. Me introducing Operation One STEM at a Time. Again, oh gosh, I don't know how, if I can get spiritual, but there's a scripture that says, write the vision and make it plain. And I literally, as I was thinking about my platform and what I wanted to do at Spelman, not at Spelman, when I was, when I won the title of Miss Savannah, I literally had like one of those legal pads. I don't know if the kids today will know what that is, a notepad, but I had like one of those yellow notepads, and I just wrote like 10 to 20 things of what I wanted to do and what I wanted to pour in, like how I wanted to pour into this particular platform. And that's literally was the birth of Operation One STEM at a Time. I wish I would have kept that paper and like framed it, but I didn't. And it literally started with a meeting. Spelman, the reunion, there was a reunion year that year, and I was Miss Spelman UNCF, and they and Miss Savannah, and they trusted me with their children, the reunioners. They had like childcare for them that day. And that is literally how Operation started. I said, okay, well, let me do a STEM activity with these kids. And literally it was so much fun. They had such a good time. And I can't even describe how I knew it would take off like this. I'm still in shock, just by all the people, like, you all, for example, that just want to know about my journey. When you're doing the work, it's kind of hard. You don't know that people are paying attention, and and I don't do it for that reason, but it's very it warms my heart to know that people are actually, out here listening and, passing on the knowledge to others, maybe what I'm telling them or what they're hearing from other people. And like I said, Operation One STEM at a Time, my goal is to educate, enlighten, and empower. And I always say exposure leads to expansion. That is my line. And I used to hate when I would hear people say, oh, well, they aren't interested in that, or those students would never get that, or X, Y, and Z. And I always say, you never know. Have they been exposed to that? Like, what tools and programs and what are we giving these students to succeed? Yeah. How are we going to ensure that these students succeed? Even if it's not going to a 4-year institution like I did, or going through a dual degree program, how are we going to get them to know that, there's certifications that you can do, there are certain apprentice programs that you can do and still be in the world of STEM, tech and technology and engineering, and still be just as good and making just as much and just a great living? Are we as a community doing our children a justice?
Yeah, and so we have an Academy of Engineering. We have one on campus at Ridgeland High School in our district.
That's good.
And we have it in our career center as well. So anybody watching now or later, that is something available that they can get 2 years of training in high school in engineering and robotics.
Oh, that's good. Yes, please join. I was on the robotics team. Yeah. Please join anything robotics. Please join any, okay. To everyone listening to this now, any opportunity that is presented to you, take it, especially now when it's free. I will say that again. Any opportunity that is offered to you and it is free or provided by your school or your program, please do it. Again, imagine if I had never done the Engineering Explorer Post program, a free program, meeting once a month or twice a month, depending. You never know. Like I said, I never knew that program that I was in for no, 18 months, excuse me, what changed literally the trajectory or just the mindset of what I wanted to do after school. Please take advantage of all that is given to you. And honestly, that's the only reason why I was able to make Operation come true. Or even like I said, I had the help of my mother. My mother passed away last year of lung cancer, but she was a very strong advocate. She was really one of the people that kept pushing me to do Operation because I was like, Mommy, I'm tired, I'm trying to graduate, just being honest. And she was like, no, you never know, you're doing a justice to the community, not only Savannah, but I never knew that people from Mississippi were looking, or things like that. But you never know the impact that those programs could have on you, like just like me, and how you could have an impact on students in the future. So like now, when people ask me like, oh, what is it like going back to your hometown after school? Well, I had already been away for about 9 years, so I still have my view of the world. But I always say like, I was one of those people that was once like, oh, well, I'm leaving Savannah. I know I was Miss Savannah, sorry, Savannah citizens, but I was one of those people that had been here my whole life and said, oh, I'm going to Atlanta or going up north. Yep. And this past couple of years, especially with the pandemic, has taught me, and even as Operation really grew during the pandemic, a lot, more as far as attention and with people wanting to provide more resources to me and me more resources to children, it really showed me that maybe this is exactly where I'm supposed to be all along. Yep. And passing the baton on to other young girls or even young men that are in the same position that I was, and like I said, capturing their attention before 17, because that's how old I was when I did the program. So it's really just a blessing. I hope I answered your question, but it really, I'm just humbled and grateful. So
well, that's great. I do have some questions from the students I want to get to. Okay. And these are all coming from them. These are some great questions. So good luck with this. This first one is Layla Young. She's our Miss Velma Jackson. She is dead set.
Say it again.
This is from Layla Young. She's a senior. She's our Miss Velma Jackson. She is dead set on going to Spelman College, and she's already began her application process.
Okay.
But she has a couple questions, and the first one is, was it hard getting into Spelman, and was Spelman your first choice?
I can't really answer the hard to get into Spelman. Now, I know now it probably is a little bit more rigorous because the applications just to go to HBCUs, like I don't know if y'all seen the recent articles, but people are taking interest in HBCUs again. The enrollment is rising, so you have to take into account of that. But Spelman was not my first choice. It was not. A lot of people thought it was because I talk about it so passionately. But I actually wanted to go to Savannah College of Art and Design. If you all have heard about that, that is the number one.
School. Yes,
the number one art and design school, I believe, in, I don't want to say the country. I think that's like Pratt.
It's the top 5. That's
in the region. I think we're top 3, top 5. Yeah. So being from Savannah, wow, why not go to this great institution that's here or in Atlanta, the Atlanta campus? But that's when I thought I was going to have more of a quote unquote artsy creative career, communications career, but life turned me to Spelman. So I got accepted into Spelman. I got accepted into SCAD. And I think I applied to UGA too. I believe so. I think
you and everybody else in Georgia.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's just like the given. You have to apply to the state school, either Georgia State or UGA. So that's like, okay, you're always gonna throw in an application for those. Yeah. And so I said, well, I went to Spelman. I went to Spelman for something called Spellbound, and if you get admitted, that's something you'll be invited to as well, Spellbound. And it's where they invite all of the admitted students for a weekend, well, like a Friday to a Monday, and they let you come live in the dorms. Like you pair up with a Spelman sister that's already there, whatever age, so freshman to senior year. And I got paired with a sophomore that year, I believe, and she was a math major, ironically. And I went to one day of classes with her, and honestly, oh my gosh, the history and traditions that are at Spelman, and just knowing, there's literally a line in our school song that says, "The shoulders that we stand upon never receive applause or fame." And you just think about that. So literally, the sister of MLK went to Spelman. The whole King family did. Just knowing all of the people that went there before you, and they were just students like you, at that time, like, who else are famous Spelman alums? Alice Walker, Keisha Knight Pulliam, who's Rudy on the Cosby Show. Like just thinking about people that came before you and once were freshmen are in the same shoes as you. It really just kind of just like, wow, like I'm here around this history and these traditions. And again, I love the community, and I love the fact again that it was just positive Black women in one space, you know, uplifting one another. That is one thing that I would say. I hate to say this, please don't get mad at me, PWI people, but at HBCUs I feel like it's more, instead of a sense of competition, it's more so you're in competition to lift your sister up or be better, or not be better, but it's like a friendly sense of competition, while at a PWI it's more of like a, yeah, who's gonna get the best grade. So I would say that's kind of like a difference, just throwing that out there.
Yeah. This is Katherine Johnson. She's a junior, and she asked, when you were in college or when you started your career, did you ever want to change your path?
Oh gosh, every day. I'm telling you guys, like engineering, it was a journey. And if I did not have that support system, who knows if I would have continued on. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have chosen more of an architecture, drafting sort of like background or major, just because of where my interests are now. Now that I'm 27. I like the marketing side of engineering, or this part where you sell it. So if I had to do anything else, I probably would have did like a minor in economics maybe, or I did a dual major, but that's all.
That's good for any major, but that's a whole different conversation. This is Destiny Smith. She's a sophomore, and she asks, have you faced any difficulties getting young girls interested in STEM?
I won't say difficulties. Every group is different. But I always ask the question, who's interested in science and math, and almost no hand goes up. But at the end of whatever activity we're doing, they all ended up asking me questions about it, wanting to know more about it. So I won't say it's really a difficulty. I would say I had to find out how to connect with them. And one talk that I give my kids, or that I say to my kids, is, life is like a blueprint. So that's literally my thing and my motto, blueprints. And I always say, like, you have this one particular goal, blueprint, you have like this beautiful picture of what's going to become, but the plan is going to change, a little bit in order for you to get to that end goal. And that's how I always tell them to view life. So have your main goal, but focus on the little plans and the changes and the erasing and just the additions that you have to add on to get there. So that's all the metaphor, I would say. Is that a metaphor? Sorry, I'm not an English major. That you would use to get to that I would use to kind of like get them connected. So yeah.
I've got one more from the students. This is Jacayla Page. She's a sophomore, and she asked, when you were in college, what were some of the engineering classes you took?
Ooh, okay. Oh gosh. Electrical engineering was probably the hardest course. Intro to electrical engineering. I'm so sorry, electrical engineers. I will actually go on record and say I had to take that class twice. Thought I was going to have to take it a third time. But honestly, failure is a part, I hate to say that, but failure is a part of this, not necessarily maybe failing a class, but maybe a bad grade, maybe to have to take a class over. I had to eat humble pie a lot of days. Oh gosh, C++, so that's a computer science course. MATLAB, oh, you'll hear a lot of people talk about MATLAB. That's another computer science course. Semio, so for industrial engineers, you have to take something called Semio. Well, that's a shortened version of it, or simulation. And it's literally a software where we literally, I think for our project, we had to create like a fast food. We had to study a campus restaurant on campus. So we chose Chick-fil-A. I mean, no, Chicken Salad Chick. I don't know if you guys have a Chicken Salad Chick. Yeah, but we had to choose Chicken Salad Chick. Yes, we chose that particular campus restaurant, and we studied and we counted how many people went in on certain days, and we had to talk about how they could make their process better. Wow. But we had to present that to the class. So, and we had to make a simulation of people going through the line and like where were our bottleneck. Bottleneck is basically like, where do people get held up? So like for Chick-fil-A, that probably where people order. So like where people get held up in the line. So yeah, you have engineers that study those things. Python is another program that industrial engineers use. It depends on what role you're in.
Yeah, we've had some students do the C Spire coding challenge with Python. I know that's a
Oh, that's good. You guys are 10 steps ahead because I never saw Python until I got to Auburn University. I had to take engineering graphics. That was pretty fun. That was just like dabbling in AutoCAD and learning how to kind of like literally engineering design, engineering graphics. So learning how to put all those things together and present that to the customer and or your professor or teacher, whoever that is. So those are just some courses I took.
Yeah, and that's all important. And I think people don't realize how broad an engineer's spectrum really is. But we're almost out of time, and we thank you so much for taking some time for us today. I think some of them may have some questions they're going to hit you up on social media with.
Okay.
And they all have all that. You're a great follow, a lot of stuff. But before we go, just one more thing. You're not much older than these kids, or a lot of the ones watching later. But you are a young Black woman in the South that's done some amazing things. Coming up in a similar situation, you went to public schools, but you went to a great HBCU and a great PWI. But you've done some amazing things with it, like we said at the beginning, a resume that will rival any guest we've ever had. But what can they do as young Black kids, young minority kids, young women, young men, to follow in the same footsteps as someone like you?
Oh gosh. Well, I would say first, write out your goals. And I know your teachers tell you that all the time, but it's true. I'm just pointing because I know the kids are going to watch this later. But that is very true, because if you don't have even what you necessarily want to do out on paper or written out or thought out, how are you going to execute it? Have your short-term goals, have your long-term goals. And as cliche as that sounds, that will help you literally. Have your daily goals. Okay, I want to do an hour of math. You have to have a foundation. 2, find your support system. So if you may not have a healthy home life, find a mentor at school. What's your last name? I was going to say Mr. Bread, but I don't want to call you your first name. Mr. Paget. See, so he's a great mentor to have, right? So find the people that are in your corner that want to see you succeed. Because if you have those people, the doors will open for you. They'll look out for you as far as maybe like resources and, opportunities, programs, maybe connections. A lot of people always ask me every day, Ambria, how did you get X, Y, and Z opportunity? And half of the time, I don't even say like where I went to school or my degree. It's just the network of people I've met and kept up with along the way. I would say having a network or a support system is very important, because those have opened a lot of doors for me. And 3, just don't give up on yourself. It can be very demanding. It can be very hard. I'm being honest. You will have imposter syndrome. Sometimes you will say, why am I here? But if you have people like Mr. Greg, I'm sorry, I keep calling you by your first name, so sorry. In your corner, Mr. Paget, in your corner. Or, if you have a Miss Mel, like I did, if you have a Miss Barbara, like I did, if you have a mother, like I did, if you had professors like I did that ultimately wanted to see me succeed or see you succeed, you will be fine. Again, you are not a product of your circumstances, but you are a product of your decisions. Let me say that again.
Absolutely.
You are not a product of your circumstances, but you are a product of your decisions. So I don't care where you came from, maybe what the outcome is looking like now, but you can turn that around. Just because you may not live in a fancy house or in a fancy neighborhood does not mean that you can't go on and be the next Steve Jobs. Is it Steve Jobs? Is that the Apple guy? I should know this. I'm sorry, y'all. Steve Jobs. I was getting mixed up with Tim Cook, but you could be the next, oh gosh, who's a big powerhouse person? Jeff Bezos. Well, I don't know if you guys want to be Jeff Bezos, but you be like the next person, like, the next Amazon creator. You never know. And just think about daily your decisions, even your decision not to do your homework, not to study. Those are affecting those little decisions you're making now will affect the big decisions later on and affect the quality of your life later on. So just be smart, you guys, just be smart. And I believe that you are. You have a teacher that loves you all, and a school system that's behind you. So I think you guys will be fine. Oh, and also, if you have any questions for me at all regarding engineering, tech, film and college, Auburn University, just anything, or just daily life advice, you can find me at Ambria Berksteiner on Facebook. So Ambria Berksteiner, it's pretty long. Berksteiner, and at Operation One STEM at a Time, for STEM, STEM, and one spelled out, so ONE, on Instagram. And I will be glad to, help you all and answer any questions that you may have. And, thank you guys for having me today.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Ambria Berksteiner, all the way from Savannah, Georgia, Operation One STEM at a Time, Spelman College, Auburn University alum. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
All right. Talk to you soon, my friend. See ya.